welcome back. Glad you joined me for some more Mega Man 1. And let's hope this isn't the part of the project where I bomb out. So okay, let's go blow up Bomb Man. The hobby enemies we saw back in Cutman stage have returned, and are the first obstacle we need to get by. And I must say, on this occasion they were very kind, jumping slowly and never too far forward to make it more of an awkward angle to try and dodge and or shoot them. They're not always this kind. Trust me, here I got lucky. Next we have some pit enemies that rise up high into the sky, explode and shower down 4 projectiles towards the ground. Always the same 4 arcing directions as well. While I make a little bit of mess of my initial timing here, a decent trick for avoiding incoming shrapnel is to hold right and walk straight at the walls. You'll avoid them every time. Some rather irritating looking screw bombers here, at least the first of them. I time the jumps that I landed on the floor just after the thing tucks away, so I can be ready and in position to fire the next time it pops up. Any later, and I'd be in trouble. And failure! So I wasn't going to pull off another accidental perfect run. If you went back and studied that, you'll see that a bullet only just scraped my foot, so I kind of knew where I was supposed to be positioned, but just slightly misplaced myself. Once you do find the spot, that room shouldn't pose too many problems. And is this our first encounter with Sniper Joe? Why, I do believe it is. And this one didn't want to do anything. Seriously, you watching this? This takes ages for me to kill him because he just stood there impassively and barely gave me any opening to hit him. Oh, by the way, while I will refer to these things, and they are in pretty much every classic Mega Man game in one form or another, by their proper name, Sniper Joe, this isn't what I now instinctively think of them as. Thanks to a rather splendid Mega Man LP, whose running gag is to call these things by whatever item happens to next appear in his eyeline, I now think of these things as being Clement Joes. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, then go look him up, because he's freaking awesome. But yeah, seriously, every time I see those things, that's what I think of. Anyone else do that? Or am I just crazy? Who knows? Anyway, we just passed a section with some Mario-style bullet bills or some wall cannons. You need to pay attention there and ideally not shoot the bullet bills when they're close to you. They explode upon being hit and the blast radius is rather wide. Always wider than I think they're going to be. Now rather than just make a run for it here, I prefer to bait out a bullet bill, like this, so that I can jump up the ladder and give myself a higher starting point than I otherwise would have had, in order to hopefully not get got at the top of the ladder when Rummy spawns on the screen. Oh, time for some extreme clumsiness. Yeah, this screen is not to be taken lightly, and bumping your head on the platform is not the smartest of moves. Fortunately, I didn't get sent back an awful long way, so I just kept the death in. Remember folks, to try and compensate for the lack of outtakes on the perfect runs, during the LP part, I tried to play the Robot Master Sages as if I were trying to perfect run them, hence the quote-unquote outtake I just saw. This time I do a bit better. Shield shooters can be really off-putting. You need to recognise that they will always fire in the same 8 directions and plan your movements accordingly. But for some reason that's usually easier said than done. I like to try to shoot them, one shot will do, and of course time my shots well so that they don't harmlessly deflect off them. Another Sniper Joe of course. This one is actually guarding an extra life, but with only the Mega Buster at my disposal it's practically, if not impossible, to get it without taking a hit, so I just try to drop down opportune time. And this side Joe likes to hump the wall. Yeah, I don't know why it was programmed to do this. As I said before, there just seems to be that little less polish to this game than others in the series. We've got one last Joe to deal with right in front of the boss door, and unfortunately I don't do an especially good job avoiding his pellet shots. Well, I guess I only get got once here, but still. Could you imagine if that happened on a perfect run attempt? One would certainly not be amused. Into the boss corridor, and we have a couple of Optus battery ladder screens to clear. Now the first of these I take my time over and carefully descend the ladder while taking them out, just to be on the safe side. Well, I don't take them all out here. I probably figured I'd already got hit a few times on the stage, so I wasn't too bothered about taking another hit. I don't know. I can't remember what I was thinking. For the second of the screens I just wait till all enemies are on one side and then drop down. And I drop down so I end up turning away from Bomb Man. I love that. Mega Man so nonchalant he doesn't even care that a Robot Master just teleported right next to him. He's like, nah, whatever, I don't give a crap about you. And that cockiness is more often than not justified. There are 2 ways of dealing with Bomb Man, because he actually goes out of his way to avoid being in close proximity to Mega Man. Seriously, if you get too close to him, he jumps away from you. I'm not sure of any other Robot Master off the top of my head who makes a concerted effort to stay away from Mega Man. This method is okay, but I find that on that odd occasion it falls down when you're moving to get right up close to Bomb Man, and he's in the middle of his bomb throwing move. If this happens, he won't always jump away from you before you actually run into him. Therefore, what is my actual strategy? Well, hopefully you saw a little of what it entails just then, but I realise that I haven't actually talked about it. Yet, anyway. That'll come in about 4 minutes' time. Despite some impressive clumsiness, I hope none of you thought I couldn't manage this stage. And if you did, I'm clearly going to have to work a lot harder to build up some faith. So once again, along with additional commentary about where the trouble spots were, enjoy the perfect run. perfect run. As you can see, in contrast to the LP version, these enemies move much quicker and jump further this time around. No problem here, although on the one occasion they did prove to be a rather early stumbling block. There were no problems with these exploding pit enemies. You may not need to actually hold right during this section, simply standing still as far right as you can may also work, but I never bother taking the risk. All I know is walk to the wall works just fine. Screw rubbers on the other hand, yes, multiple problems. I think at least 4 or 5 mess-ups, but I attribute that to initially trying to clear this first section a different way. I tried to take the high road and avoid having to kill the screw bombers entirely. It did not work out as I hoped. And now you get to see where you should position yourself on the ladder in order to make it through this screen. That positioning is key. Once you have it, the rest is pretty straightforward. Oh, come on, stop jumping. Jeez. Well, Joe here got me once. He thought it would be delightful to just endlessly shoot pellets one after the other. About 5 or 6 in quick succession. Eventually the time worked out so I landed straight on one of them, which of course prompted him to immediately stop shooting. Bastard. Anyway, be careful through this next section. Shoot the wall cannons, and my advice would be to not shoot the Volabills, but to let them go over your head. As for the exploding pit enemy section, walking into the walls here seems to make Dodgers from a breeze, as they just arc over you. No such problems once I got past the wall section there, so the bit with the spines didn't pose any problems whatsoever. And nor did this. I had a jolly good time with the baiting of the bullet bill here. But the remainder of the attacks were all in this scrolling area. Either mistiming my shots to shoot the shield enemies, or mispositioning myself when trying to avoid its shots. It can be really quite nerve-wracking. As I said, I like to try to shoot them, but you do need pretty good timing, because if you shoot the thing while the shield's up, and the bullet harmlessly deflects away, in all likelihood you'll get hit when it opens up and fires at you. I get lucky here. Really, really lucky. That was way too close, and my heart definitely skipped a beat. Well, Sniper Joe was again trying to hum the wall there, but I wasn't expecting it this time, so by the time I really noticed what was happening and tried to scroll back, it was unfortunately too late, and I'd already scrolled it off the screen. I was prepared for that to happen during the LP though, as I obviously caught it. I didn't have any issue with this last Joe, despite it always seeming to take ages to kill it. Probably because by this time I was pretty confident that nothing else would get me, and I thought it best to take my time and not make a colossal piss up of things. And perhaps won't surprise you to know that the Octopus batteries in the boss corridor were no problem. Again with the first of them, take the time, descend the ladder slowly and shoot them. Best not to take any risks, not at this point in time. I could have been a lot quicker, but hey, I'm not going for a speed run. And with the second of the 2 screens, once again, just rather than mess about killing them all, wait until they're all aligned on one side of the screen and drop down if you want to clear it quicker. This time we're going to the boss fight facing Bombman, with a bit more respectful this time. Same strategy as before though. Essentially, I keep my distance and just move out of the way of any incoming bombs. I always seem to have enough room to do this, except for this part of the fight, which shows where he never usually does, whereby he actually wanted to follow me quite closely in a sort of mini Toadman impression. But yeah, I slightly prefer this method over the move toward him one, as I find that you do occasionally run into him if he doesn't get out of the way in time. Either way though, Bombman really is nothing to worry about. Three down. Half of Mega Man 1 Robot Master Stage is completed. Although believe me when I say that the remaining ones are nowhere near as easy. Some of you may in fact think that either elect, fire or ice may prove to be too difficult for me. Well, we'll see. Remember again that there are Robot Master Stages that I haven't been able to perfect run. Don't for a second think that I've managed to come all 81 I've attempted. I certainly haven't. Anyway, Bombman clearly wasn't one of those. This took around 25 minutes. And, by the way, I'm rounding these times to the nearest 5 minutes. It made it far easier to represent on my little clock pictures. This was in between the times for cut and guts, and that feels about right, although I might expect to be able to do cut quicker if I tried again. This equated to 11 outtakes, none of which were on Bombman. I described the issues during the perfect run, but to summarise, mainly the screw rummer section because I tried to get past them in what I now consider a far more difficult manner, the room with the 4 wall cannons that it took me a couple of tries to figure out exactly where I need to be positioned on the ladder, and the screen with all the shield shooter enemies, which requires some pretty accurate timing to either shoot or dodge the gits. I reiterate, no outtakes on Bomb Man. I consider him to be pretty easy, and he certainly never gives me as much to run for my money as either Cut or Guts. Again, I was pretty happy while I was at this stage. Apologies if it seems as though I'm always feeling happy during this. That will change soon enough. You can bank on that. And overall, again apologising for the lack of variety in my stage ratings, but I rate Bomb Man as a 2 out of 10. There's enough going on here for me to not be able to rate it any easier, but ultimately, with the short time it took me to beat, with relatively few outtakes, and a very simple boss fight, I couldn't possibly give it a higher rating. Also, this is one of the 2 Robot Master stages with no Big Eye in it. Bung you one of those to this stage, and it just might have got a 3 or higher. But thankfully, there isn't one, so 2 out of 10 it is. Well, difficulty's certainly going to go up a notch for these next few stages. This is where things start to get really interesting. Hope you'll join me for those. Until then, cheerio.